Hi, everybody. This is Jackie Schwab back with the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with people like Miss Rebekah here on topics that help our listeners, that's you, find the resources, tools, and support they need to be their best inspired selves. So how are you today?
I am doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Connecticut, and the sun is finally shining. I am ready for spring.
It is shining. I could see the sunshine in like you're way back in your window, and it just started shining. We're in Wisconsin, so I saw the sun the other day, and I did so miss her. I was like, oh, shine. It's been very gray here. Very, very gray. So could you just tell the audience like a little bit about yourself and like what you're up to these days?
Absolutely. So a little bit about myself. I am a mom of an awesome 11-year-old who has certainly put us through every pace of parenting that we could have asked for. I live in the northwest corner of Connecticut, which is a beautiful rural woodsy area with my family and our very fluffy cat named Maccabee. And I'm an educator, and I think in many ways I have been an educator for much longer than I was willing to admit. I was always that kid who wanted to go down and help in the younger classes when I was little, but fought it for a while, went through every possible, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a biologist. Nope, I'm in education. And I think it's really at the core of who I am, is somebody who really loves helping people solve their problems around learning. And where I've really found my happy spot is in working in the space between families and schools and helping, I should even say families and education. I do work with homeschool families and helping them understand how they can move through their education really successfully. And so I am, that's who I am. I'm a problem solver, and I really like helping families work through things in education. What that's looked like over time has been as an educational consultant. I've done a lot of tutoring and individual help for families. I lived in Colorado for a long time, and in Colorado, education is very deregulated, which means that the state doesn't put a lot of restrictions on it. So families can get pretty creative. So I was able to really help families build programs that worked for them between homeschool, public school, private school. That led to me starting a progressive middle and high school called the Peak School, which is still out there and happy in Frisco. So hi, everyone at Peak, if you're listening. They have a very special place in my heart, and went from there to move on to be an elementary school principal. And now I'm the CEO and founder of Crossbridge Education Consulting, where all I do all the time is help work with families and schools to improve educational outcomes for kids. So that's the long version.
That wasn't too bad. That was pretty reasonable. And I have to say, I am a nerd. I loved school as a kid. I was the one like teaching my brother, like having play school. And I don't know how I taught for a bit, just like post-secondary education, ITT Tech. But what I love about education, I didn't realize until I had a special needs child. And as I was helping her with some particular problem, it was the coolest thing when you actually look at a child and you see them learn. Like the moment they go, oh, well, yes, I do know this thing. And man, I'll tell you what, I do just about any, like of all the highlights of my day, of my week are I have 4 kiddos. They're all different ages and different abilities, different stages. And just to see them just sometimes get it. If there were like cartoons, the light bulb would literally go off over their head. So I love educators, especially educators that recognize it is a partnership between the family, the student, and the institution. We had a couple misses with our daughter who needed some different supports, but then we found her perfect place, and just the growth that you get to see in a child, especially when you worried or thought maybe they may not get that growth. is just, oh, it just warms your whole heart, right? To just be so honored to see a child learn. It's
Yeah,
very
that's
cool.
one of my favorite moments. I think you talk about the light bulb moment for kids when you as a parent can see them really growing. There's a similar moment when I work with families where they'll come into my office or I'll be sitting with them or talking with them over the phone, and I can feel the tension and the stress and that worry that you're talking about of like, we've had a miss, or this isn't working, or is this going to be okay, especially if they've just gotten some hard news about their kiddo, or they're coming to understand their child in a different way for the first time. And when over the course of the conversation, you kind of watch or hear their shoulders drop away from their ears, and there's this exhale moment where they realize that it's going to be okay. And we may not know exactly how it's going to get to okay, but it's going to be okay. And that moment is really what I work for all the time, is just how do we help people step into that space where this doesn't have to be so hard. And it's so rewarding when you get that little moment and you realize that, there's somebody else on that path to like growth and success.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like we've had almost every circumstance. We haven't homeschooled, but we've had public, we've had private, we've had like a hybrid kind of thing. We've had special education services, we've had not had special education services. And I think that it does matter to have more people that stand in the middle of that space. Is a godsend. I mean, I wish there were more kind of advocates in that middle area, because I'm fairly educated. Like I have a master's degree, and I still found navigating some. Like for us, we have school choice, so there's all these complicated levels, and when you can pick, and what you can pick, and what you can't pick, and you have to pick by a certain date. You have to pick, and if you have a kid in this one but not in this one, and all these rules, and just to be so stressed, and then our kids feel that, right? And then we wonder why they don't want to go to school. Well, we just ran around like a crazy person pulling our hair out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. I don't know.
That's when you get them waking up with the stomach aches every day.
Yeah, we've had that. Right now it's we were talking, preparing for it. Right now it's the earache, which has been long since resolved, right? So we had a bunch of ear infections in the house, and so now the littlest guy now every day for like the last 2 weeks, I can't go to school. My ears are hurting. I won't be able to hear. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you're not listening anyway, buddy. It'll be okay.
And you said you have kids in 4 different schools.
3 of the 4. So we have a large age span. We have a daughter who's in high school public, and then we have my sons who are 8 and 10 are in middle school, or elementary and middle school are together, private Catholic school. And then our 8-year-old who's autistic is in public. What do they call? It's like everyone's there public. But she's not quite mainstreamed yet. She still has some extra separate supports, mostly because she's elected into having some separate time from other humans. But she's doing, like, I just tell you, having the right teacher support system, not just teacher, but her teacher's crazy amazeballs. But having the right teacher is just, it's been this experience for her that used to be traumatic. I mean, like legitimately trauma causing, to she is devastated if she doesn't see the bus coming. She loves her teacher. She loves the support system at the school. She's telling us things. She's like testing at grade level now and learned to write. So it does matter, but it wouldn't be that way if my husband and I weren't involved, and it wouldn't be that without a great OT and a great PT and an amazing special ed teacher and great support. So yeah, we're all over the place.
What did you do as a parent in that moment when you said there have been a couple misses, in that moment when you realized this was a miss? How did you realize that this was not the environment your child was going to thrive in? And what
Yeah,
did you?
that was pretty aware. So we got a call from, so Zoe was in school with the boys and her older sister at that point. So they're all there. And our older kids came to school and came home and said, Mom, you're not gonna believe what happened. I said, well, what happened? They said, they literally locked all of us in our classrooms until Zoe stopped screaming in the hallway at the top of her lungs. And I was like, I don't think that's working. Because,
How heartbreaking as a
yeah,
parent.
first of all, she's like in the hall screaming alone and no one would supporting her. Second, they wouldn't let her siblings go out. And third, they literally like called her out globally through the entire school and said, until Zoe blah, blah, blah stops acting like a blah, 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 we're not going to do this. And I was very shocked because they, my oldest had been there a long time and been a very, very good place. And they said that they were willing to work with us. And we had therapists there. Like we had full-time ABA therapists that were with us. So it was actually our other kids. And people may or may not like my response, but it was, I have 4 kids that need to be educated and 127 kids in the school. They all deserve to learn too, right? And so clearly not the best fit for her, but also not the best fit for my other 3 kids who weren't being supported then either.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked for different solutions, but we're pretty kind of flow, go with, you kind of have to at some point, but, and then we found the school she's in. Well, it was a lot of stuff to go through, but we got lucky. I mean, they love her. They think they call us when she does the cutest little things that only they would know were huge things to us,
Mm-hmm.
when she says her first words or she comprehends for the first, like she can read at like a 12th grade level, but she's has trouble articulating herself. So they're like, hey, she read this book and comprehended, like she told us about it. So they tell us, I know, right? We're just like, oh, this is so great. We come home, we're like, how's your day? She's like, fine. You had like an amazing day. Your teacher called us, like her teacher almost cried once. She was so happy that Zoe figured out a math problem. Like that's how amazing it is. So for us, it was that. It wasn't a good behavior fit for her. It wasn't a good fit for the other kids.
Yeah.
Um,
And it sounds
yeah,
like it took some work to find the right spot and
it
the right
did. It did.
network of services.
Yeah. So it started out before the school, so we got spoiled because we found a wonderful daycare school from the time she was little that was just amazing. And they weren't autism trained, but they were Zoe trained. And then she had a therapist with her in the like preschool place for years until she went to regular school, because at 6 you have to, or the state freaks out here. And like she went from this really supportive place to, somewhere that wasn't. And then we just had to work through that, and find a place that supported her. And we're going to have to go through that in another 2 years because school age is only till 6th grade there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we'll get that lucky and maybe we won't. But I think my advice is, if you don't have someone like yourself that can help with that like bridging, don't stop trying. There is an answer. There is a advocacy group. There's a People for Disabilities board if your kid's special. If your kid is bright, you have the same issues, right? Getting them into AP classes and getting them into other things. But there is a way. There's always a way. You just might have to like bulldoze through a wall to get it. But
And sometimes it's knowing what the right questions are to ask, right? That's one of the biggest things I'll do with families is when I'll sit down and talk with them. And a lot of families I don't need to work with me long term to get where they need to go. They need to sit down for an hour or sometimes a little bit longer. And we just need to put together the plan for them, the roadmap, so that they know what questions to ask, what are the keywords to listen to know if somebody's going to be the right fit for their child, who to call first, who to make sure gets what documents in what order so that the services can happen. I just looked at your face. That's the face of every parent who's been through it, right? And put yourself on the front end of that, of the I haven't been through it to know you don't even know that when you call the PT's office and schedule your first appointment and you show up, that they're going to send you away if you don't have the referral from your pediatrician first. And then you have to go back, but the pediatrician needs a letter from the school before they can. It's
Yep. Yeah.
crazy. And families spend so much time just trying to figure out the right steps. So sometimes just that's some of the work I do with them is, hey, look, let me put together the steps for you. You can go and do it on your own if you feel confident in that. Let me save you some time. And that, I mean, one of the audience you serve is busy, career-driven parents.
Right. Right.
And time is such a precious commodity.
Yeah, we have none, right? Since, and I love that you said that. And one of the things that we were really lucky, and we didn't expect to be, was the local school system here, and it has a really good IEP program, and they have great in-school advocates that advocate for their kids.
Amazing.
It's crazy amazing and completely unexpected. But that means this sounds like a really weird thing to say, but it means we're kind of lucky we have a special kid, because we have special kid supports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a exceptionally miraculously bright kid, they don't have IEPs for super smart kids, right? They don't have education plans for that kid. Like, I have one of my kids has a really unique sound dysplasia. It's a dyslexia derivation, and he's not really struggling with it now. They originally just thought it was regular dyslexia, but it's like he has some sound issue where he can't make a picture make sense to a sound in his head. And so he was really struggling with reading, and he thought he was not smart, but he's so smart. The kid is like crazy smart, but he wasn't not smart enough or too smart enough, right? So you kind of have these little spaces where the kids fall in. And I think those are the more challenging moments. It's like, I learned the hard way how the system worked, but I learned it through a system, right? That I could find and look up. A lot of parents, there isn't like a roadmap, right? I have a pretty okay kid, but they have this one challenge or this learning situation, or they're extra bright, or they twitch, or they have Tourette's, or whatever their thing is. There's not as much support there, I think.
And the way legislation has played out over the last few decades of time, and the way it's currently impacting our students, is that if schools can help students engage with the curriculum and be successful in the curriculum without doing any testing or any special education services, then they don't qualify for those services, even if they could benefit from them to become their best self. But as long as schools can get them through, it's called RTI, response to intervention. I'm sure you're abundantly familiar with this. If schools can get them up to a reasonable baseline, that's meeting their standards of qualification, which for somebody like me who, like you, is a little bit of a nerd, I'm a total edu geek, I want to understand how kids' brains work so that we can serve them to the best capacity we possibly can. So I oftentimes feel myself kind of flatlining a little bit when I come up into some of these situations and saying, but doing fine isn't doing their best. So what do we need to understand about these kids, our kids, so that we as parents can help them be their best selves, and we can help teachers better understand how they learn? Because sometimes it's just simple tweaks. I've worked with some kids who we know will do fine in the curriculum. And if you can make sure directions are always presented to them visually instead of auditorily, they can thrive.
Yeah. I had my nephew moved in with me when I was really young, and I was helping with him his math, and he had a learning delay, more from environment than ability.
Mm-hmm.
And I was helping him with math, and I'm not kidding you. It was the seventh way that I had worked out to try to show him how to do this, very basic multiplication problem. And I ended up drawing out picture of boxes with like colors, and then coloring in for this, and then, like this. And he looked at me and he was so serious and so mad. He's like, why didn't you just say that in the first place? And I'm telling you, I mean, try to find the seventh way of showing like one thing. And I'm not a teacher, right? So I'm like, oh,
Right.
but what if we always taught him that way, right? What if he always was shown those things? And so much of his self-esteem was linked to the fact that he was too stupid to do stuff in school.
Yep.
But he wasn't. He was bright. He just learned different than the base curriculum was supporting at the time.
I was listening to a TEDx talk, and I'm going to apologize because I can't remember the woman's name right now, but I'll email it to you so you have it, and we can maybe throw it in the comments of the episode for people who want to track it down. And she was talking about why it's important to talk about difference with kids. And one of the things that she said so beautifully, and I don't think I'll ever forget this one phrase, she said, equity of outcomes does not equal sameness of process.
Yep.
And that's just such a clear and easy way to understand what we're talking about when we're saying, look, this child might need this to get here. And just because that's different from what another child might need doesn't mean it's inequitable. If your child gets more time to complete a math assignment than the child next to them, that's not unfair. What's unfair is if the outcomes for those two kids are different. And really helping people understand that. And it does, it puts such a huge hit on kids' self-esteem when the need for things to be the same, when people confuse equity with sameness, and the need for things to be the same means the child on my right can learn, but the child on my left isn't. And we're dealing with a burgeoning mental health crisis in our country right now. And the parents who are saving their kids from that are doing a few key things. They're staying involved. They're setting boundaries and encouraging freedom within that. They're letting their kids experience adversity, which is important. But they're also getting help to make sure that along the way their kids have the supports they need and that parents aren't going it alone. I think, the isolation kids are feeling through social media land and lack of connectivity with actual humans is one that adults are suffering from too. And the more we can connect with each other and get help from people who can really step in and help us better understand our kids or recommend resources from the field, the better off we're all going to be in helping to raise a generation of kids who are resilient and healthy and self-advocates and understand what success looks like for them and how to get there.
That's perfect. Yeah, we are. I was at the Wisconsin Board of People with Disabilities, and there's two concepts that both of which you've touched on that are, I guess, pillars of things in the advocacy work. And the first one is equity and equality are not the same, which is what you had said, and it's very similar explanation of the difference, right? I don't want equality. I want equity in every way, not just for my kiddo, but for all people.
Mm-hmm.
And the second, I think we just say differently, but is the dignity of risk, especially for
Love that.
children who are differently abled or neurologically atypical. They still have to fall. They still have to fail forward. And helicopter parenting them out of their opportunity to skin their knee really robs them of their resiliency and their ability to come through things when you're not there to hold their hand or to pick them up or to kiss the boo-boo. And so those are things that we talk about in advocacy in the disability community, but I think they're no less important in advocacy work and education. We have to we don't have to do anything, but what I'd love to see is that, my really, really super smart kiddo can be taught in a way that she can continue to be really, really super smart. And my differently intelligent daughter can be, continue to evolve and grow because she's taught in a way that helps her. but we also have to arm the teachers with resources, tools, support. Not so many kids in a class if you have so many different types of learning styles. And Common Core, and maybe this is controversial, but for me, Common Core is the exact opposite of everything that we're talking about.
We're on the same page with that one.
It's about equality then, right? Not equality of outcome, but equality of inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like when you're a kid and you're like, you got my toy and I didn't get one. Like that's the kind of crap that's leading to. But that's just me as a reasonably informed parent being frustrated. But
Yeah.
yes, I think we're saying the same types of things that like advocate for our kids to, but gosh, we can't forget about the educators either. Like that teacher that I told you is amazing. She's going to burn out. She's got like 6 kids, like my daughter, all at once. My daughter is enough for me. Like, and she is like an 8-hour day where she's making her learn something she doesn't necessarily want to do. That's a tall order. That's a tall order without support. So I think we have to make sure we include both sides of the equation in that relationship too.
And that's going to be one of the keys. If I'm starting to think really globally about how do we like fix the education system, and I just put fix in quotes, but it's really elevating teaching as a profession and helping to lift teachers back into a space where they're seen as experts in their field, and where they're given the resources and tools to continue their education and to stay abreast of research and trends and do the good work. Simple things like teachers need planning time. If you survey any group of teachers in one of those really highly scientific spheres like Twitter, the thing that comes up the most when you think about when you ask teachers what they would want, I'm gonna hold my rant for a minute. I was about to go off on a little tangent there, but is time. What they want is time, and they want time to plan. They want time to read. They want time to really look at kids' work in a meaningful way, to be able to understand each individual child in their classroom. And what the modern educational system takes away from them over and over and over again is time, just through additional layers of bureaucracy and paperwork that have to get filled out, adding responsibilities, cutting budgets, cutting resources.
When you continually disempower a group of people who went out of their way to get all of that education for love of learning and love of teaching, then yeah, right, you're going to have burnout, you're going to have frustrated teachers, so it is a system. I think it's the parents have a role, and they much more active role would be preferred, I believe, and that the teachers have a role, but they have to be supported.
Yeah.
And we can't, like, I have a lot of parents, and we'll probably wrap up because I don't want to keep you. I know you have other parents and families to help, but we have a lot of parents who get really frustrated with how a teacher this or didn't do that or whatever. But they're not like we used to, and maybe it's just us, but we used to create a special set of flashcards because that's what our daughter needed. And the teacher didn't have time for that, but she used them because we provided it. We went to all of the parent-teacher conferences, even though we knew it was going to be bad news again for a while, right? But then it wasn't always bad news. But you can't hold them to a higher standard for outcomes than you hold yourself.
Yeah.
And we do. It's a lot of disproportionate, right? Disproportionate in the expectations and the reality of how we treat our educators.
Yeah. And I think parents finding those positive spaces where they can see their kids through the lens of joy and play and appreciation for who they are as humans, giving themselves some grace and being gentle with themselves, because we are all humans, and we are all imperfect, and recognizing that each of us can do little things to help make big change, but no one of us is responsible for changing the whole system. And as parents, the best way you can help make change is by helping to support your own children, your own children's teachers, and really help understand what the needs are and what your right steps are. Because when you're doing that and your children feel safe, then they can learn. And when they can learn, the teachers feel supported and filled up because they're being successful in the job that really is very mission centered for them. And so,
Because unfortunately, it can't be about the money. I
not
laugh, and only because I'm sad. Like my neighbor was she's not our neighbor now, but she was for like 20 years. She taught 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. She has a master's degree. She made less with all of that and all those credentials and 40 kids than I made when I graduated college and got my first job.
mm-hmm.
And that included her buying most of the kids' supplies because of a very poor district. And I thought, oh my gosh, like she went back and spent money to get her master's. She did all of this work and she loved her kids. Because if it weren't for the mission, how do you keep doing that work?
Yeah, it's really, really hard. And those are some of the bigger questions that we're working to address systemically, while also.
Well, we're glad we have people like you that are helping us do that. So thank you so much for your time today. Any last parting words for our audience of where they can reach you or information of how you can help them in the future?
Absolutely. I love talking to people. So please reach out. The best way to reach me is to go to our website at www.teamcrossbridge.com. It's teamcrossbridge.com. And you can sign up to just make an appointment with me and have a phone call. If you just need a good listening ear, great. I love hearing from what's going on out there in the world. And if you want to see if that's a good opportunity for us to work together, I'm happy to do that too. And sometimes that's just, like I said, making a quick roadmap for you so that you can go off and do the work yourself. And if you need somebody who gets into the trenches with you, we can do that too. But above all, I'll just reach out because I'd love to chat and hear people's stories. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll make sure we have Team Crossbridge in the show notes, as well as your other connection information. Thank you so much. I know you're very busy and you're out there educating our kiddos for a better tomorrow. So thank you. And I look forward to keeping in touch over the years.
That sounds great. Thank you for the work you do.
Oh, thanks. Bye.
Bye.